So this game tonight, Kentucky in action at Ole Miss, and the Wildcats, obviously not having Lamont Butler hurts, but they give up 98 points. 98 points, Henson, and they lose 98-84. The defensive issues carry on. What are your thoughts?
I saw the stat they're allowing the seventh most points in all Power 5 conferences per game. You watched the game today. It was a lot of miscommunication on defense, a lot of maybe like lack of effort, which is the opposite of what Ole Miss is as a team. And they put it on them quickly. And Ole Miss needed every single one of those points because Kentucky is so good offensively. They're going to keep applying pressure, similar to Alabama, even when they're down. But yeah, they've got to defend. We don't see them as a defensive team, but letting Ole Miss score 100 points on you is just you can't let that happen. You're not going to win games. It's catching up to them on the road, especially. And tonight was just another example. And then they're missing their two primary ball handlers as well, so that's also an issue. From a standpoint defensively, the head of the snake, and offensively as well. But that's going to be the story for Kentucky. If you're going to defend, you'll be fine. If not, Ole Miss is going to be up by 20, and this game, respectfully to the score, it wasn't that close.
Mr. Moore, what's wrong with Kentucky?
I think people are just getting whatever they want offensively. Like Ole Miss, it wasn't hard for them to score tonight, and you don't feel Kentucky at all when you're on offense. Like you don't feel them defensively at all. And a big part of it is obviously, Lamont Butler, he is their most important player. Not only is he their best defender, I think he puts pressure on the rim, and he's their one guy that, like Ortega always is doing it as well, but Butler's even better at putting pressure on the rim, getting into the paint, turning defense to offense. And it's not like they're struggling offensively, but when they need to score at such a high rate, they're missing that a little bit. And then by him not being out there, it's Travis Perry's playing a lot more minutes. Kobe Brea's having to play 29 minutes. And like Kobe's an incredible scorer. Jackson's a really good scorer too. But, I was at the Alabama game, and Nate Oates, he told the story of Joe Mazzulla, and I wrote about it that night, that Joe Mazzulla talks about seals, having seals out there, and you're a killer whale, and you're hunting the seals. And basically saying there were a lot of seals on Kentucky. Like there were a lot of guys we could hunt, and there are a lot of guys you can go after. Andrew Carr, his back not being right. Like I think their foremen defensively aren't that great right now either. And then the guards, you can go at them. There's just too many holes, and Butler will help with some of that. This is never going to be a good defensive team, but it makes the minutes work out a little bit better because he can play 30. And you've got other guys that aren't having to, maybe they're maxed out right now as far as some guys have to play more than they should have to play.
You could argue too. I need to call Mark Pope. I'm gonna tell him a little trick Roy Williams did. We had a bad couple defensive games, and we sucked defensively. We walked into the gym. There were no rims. There were no rims for 2 days. We did not shoot a So that
So what happened? Wait, what'd you do?
Defensive drills. We ran. We did sprints. We did passing drills. We did not shoot the ball for 2 days. So, needless to say, it worked out for us. We didn't have to take the rims off again. So, if Kentucky's listening, if the Big Blue Nation's listening, look, I've got some ideas.
Yeah, but part of it's, it is some mentality, but some of it is just personnel.
Yeah, true that.
Well, and you look at this team. And there is a side of this as well when you bring in the transfers that they brought in. Several of these guys know who they are in November. They know what their strengths are. They've played a lot of college basketball.
Oh yeah.
How the pieces fit together, it's a different story for every team in the country, but they fit pretty well. There's a good energy about them. They're really, really hard to defend. there's a lot of teams in November that are now better offensive teams, but in November they didn't know who they were. I mean, when they got Duke at the perfect time. They got Duke at the perfect time. The Gonzaga game, that's been a trend for Gonzaga throughout the year. I'm not trying to not validate what they've done, because what they've done body of work wise still has them in a good spot. And oh, by the way, Ole Miss, the desperation came out of them. They're at home. They got to get it done. They're a very offensively gifted team. But I do think Kentucky, it's the floor ceiling thing, where in November, what that team was they knew who they were more than a lot of other teams that they were playing.
Yeah, and from being as I played at a high level, defense is the hardest thing to get on the same page with. Offense is fine, right? Like, it's fun, everybody was, but defense is the thing that you have to be most connected on. And this is kind of the NIL era, right? Like, yeah, we talk so much about how these 10 guys have came together and look so good, like, but also when shit goes bad, it's very easy to let go of the rope when I haven't built a bond and a relationship with these team and this coaching staff. And you're kind of seeing, I mean, with Kentucky, like CJ said, it looked easy. They were shooting threes. They were running up and down the court, yelling and screaming. I mean, Ole Miss is not an offensive juggernaut by any stretch of imagination. So, Kentucky's got to just buy back in, and we're not saying they got to be the best in the country, but they've got to make it harder, or this SEC they'll go into the tournament battered and bruised, and they will be upset.
CJ, where does Kentucky go from here? Do you think that this can still get salvaged? Do you think that this still can be a team that's making the second weekend of the NCAA tournament?
I mean, I think a lot of it comes down to health, and they do have some pockets of the schedule that allow for, they are playing South Carolina next at home. Like, that has to be a get right game. Then they host Tennessee. That's tough, but that's one that they could probably win. And they got Texas and Vanderbilt after that. Like, they do have a winnable stretch coming up here where they should theoretically take at least 3 or 4. And then you're feeling a little bit better about themselves. But I said it on a show or one or two ago, a week or two ago, that, like, I had a coach tell me really early on in the SEC season that if you told Mark Pope 500 in the SEC, I bet he would take it. And that just might be kind of what they are in this, like, juggernaut of a league. And the fact that they put this team together so quickly, and I mean, there aren't like, this roster isn't littered with pros. Like, they're a good college roster, but it's not like they're going to overwhelm you with talent. Like, I think Mark's done a good job. You made a great point, Fana, that they did come together really quickly, and, like, everybody kind of bought into their roles really quickly. And I thought that was impressive. Now, this is the first time they're really, really going through it adversity wise. Let's see how they respond. But I think if you can get Lamont Butler back out there, like, he's your heartbeat. That's the biggest thing that needs to happen is they got to get him back, because he's their most important guy. And when you take anybody's best player off the team, I mean, things like this could happen. So I think, the story for them has been that maybe there isn't like a best player on the team, but I think he's definitely the most important guy.